So in the previous video, we had an example of context in React.js. So today we will be doing yet another video and an example on React context for beginners. So in the last video, we did do a recap about what is React context and how we are going to use it and what it is all about. We have a detailed video about that already uploaded onto our channel. You can check that out. So talking about React context again, I would like to bring your attention to that if you haven't worked with React context, then I would like to tell you that it is an essential tool for every React.js developer. It lets us share state in our application easily. So we have already talked about what is React context, when we should use React context. So in that we talked about the data that we are going to pass using context included themed data, user data and location specific data. So we have done one example using themed data where we had a theme button, and today we are going to use some data that we are going to increase according to ourselves, and we are going to see that how React context exactly works. We will be having some console.log statements, and we will be knowing about non-context components also that are not being affected by context whenever we re-render our application. So data should be placed on React context that does not need to be updated often. You have to keep this in mind. And if you ask me why, then because context was not made as an entire state management system. I have already told you this point, and it was made to make consuming data easier. So in today's example, we will be having two consumers. One is A and another is B. They will have an initial value, and then we are going to increment their value using a button, and we will also see that how the component gets re-rendered. So how are we going to use React context? We will be looking in the video very soon. Let me give you an overview. So first of all, we will be creating the context using the create context method, and then we will take our created context and wrap the context provider around the component tree. We will put any value that we like in our context provider using the value prop. So whenever we will render the context provider name, and along with that we will also render the value prop so that it will give the initial value, and then we will read that value within any component by using the context consumer. In today's video, we will also be using the use state, the use context and the use effect hook. So first of all, what is use context hook? So another way of consuming context became available in the React 16.8 version when the React hooks were introduced. So we can also consume context with the use context hook. So instead of render props, we can pass the entire context object to react.useContext to consume context at the top of our component. So that is how we are going to see use context hook. We have detailed videos regarding hooks already uploaded in our video in our channel, so you can check that out. Now let us get ahead with our today's example. So currently I'm inside my app, and today we'll be creating a new component. This component will be a little longer component than we have seen in our previous videos. So there will be three components inside that. So there will be three functions, and then we will be seeing how they are getting rendered. So let's get on with our video. We will be creating a new component. inside the components folder. So inside my components folder, I'm going to create a new file that is named theme.js. You can also add styling to these sheets if you want, according to yourself. But I'm keeping it simple. You can add any styling, CSS styling, according to your wish. So I'm inside my components folder and I'm creating the component named theme.js. Now inside theme.js, I am going to import React from React first of all, and then I'm going to import some of the hooks also. So we will import that all together here. Next we are going to import the use context hook, next use effect hook, and use state also. So use state and then use effect. Another thing that we will be importing is the React DOM. So I will import React DOM from React. After this I will be creating a const. This will be named test context, and I will create my context using the create context method. So react dot create context. Now I'm adding a function. This function is called test context provider. So you've already seen that we add a provider and we also add a consumer. So this is the provider. Inside my provider I'm passing children, and I will create a const. It will have two attributes because we are using use state here. So field and then set field. And we will use the use state. We will give it an initial value. So here we have two components. First one will be A. It will have an initial value 1, and again B. This will also have an initial value 1. Now after this we'll add our use effect hook. Inside use effect we are going to pass the arrow function, and we will add a console.log statement so that we can see whenever our components are rendered. So inside console.log I'm adding rendering the provider. We can also see that in what order the components are being rendered. Now I'm creating a const and it is named increment prop. Increase prop, and increase prop is going to do the actual work of increasing the value of A and B. So here I will be using key, and then I will call the set field method, and inside set field we'll pass the previous field and also the key that will be assigned to incrementing the key. So we will change the value of key and we will set it to key +1. So the increase prop will increase our value of A and B both to by 1. Now after this we will be adding our return statement. So inside return we will be having a few things. First of all, I will be adding the text context dot provider and I will give it a value. This value is a copy of the fields, and also we are passing the increase props inside text context provider. And this is the wrapper element for the return. Now we will be passing the children inside this. This is all about the function test context provider. Now we will be writing our another function. So we'll write function we have included all our functions inside one component only for a beginner friendly view. So we will be adding consumers also. We will be having two consumers. So our first function is consumer A. And after consumer A, we will be having a const. So our const has A and increase props, and we will be assigning it to use context. Inside use context, we will be adding text context as the argument. Next, we will be calling the use effect hook and then pass the arrow function. Here we will be adding again a console.log statement so that we can see that how the consumer is being rendered. So inside that I'm adding the statement rendering child A. And we will be adding the return statement. So inside return we will be having a div. First of all, you can add CSS by just adding class names to your div and then adding the CSS sheet. We have done this in the last video, but today there is no need to add styling or something to that. You can add it according to your wish. Inside the div, I will be having a p tag. This p tag will be representing the value of A. So I will just write the value of A is, and then we will be adding the JSX expression of A. I will also add a button which will have an on click of. So this on click is going to increase the value whenever clicked. So again I will be calling increase prop and then pass a as an argument. So only the value of a will be incremented, and our button will just say increase a. And this is consumer A. Similarly, we will have another consumer B that will be responsible for increasing the value of B, because we have two arguments, and we will just remove the inverted commas. So next is function consumer B, and then it is also same, so we will just add that. Now we will be adding the const inside consumer B. Inside that we will be passing B and increase props, and then assign it to use context. Again, use context will be having test context as the argument. Consumer B is exactly same as consumer A. Again, use effect, and we will be passing a console.log statement which will say rendering child B. So rendering child B, and then we will add the return statement. So inside the return I will be adding a div, and then we will just copy paste the thing that is inside the consumer A. So instead of A, I will replace all A with B. Then we will add another component, that is another function, which will be the non-context component. So we will add function, and then we will add non-context component. It will have use effect. Inside use effect we are going to pass a console.log statement first. Inside that we will be writing rendering non-context component. And then the return statement. So again I will have a div, and we will add so inside the div we will be adding a small line which says other content that does not consume content and won't. So I will remove that. Okay, that's won't be rendered. Actually it will be re-rendered. By context updates. So that is what we are basically including inside our non-context component. this will not be re-rendered whenever our context updates. Now we will add our components inside the app.js file. So our wrapper element will be the provider. So test context provider. We will also import it from our themes.js. So text context provider is the wrapper. And we will be adding a div inside that. This div has a class name of app. Although we do not have any styling, but we are just sticking to the default. And we will import it from theme.js. So import test context provider from whatever your location is. Inside my components, I am in the themes. Now inside the div, we'll be adding three things. The first is 3 components and one h1 and h6. So React context example 3, or just example, and an h6 which says like and subscribe. Now we will be adding our components. So first component is the non-context component. Next we will be adding our consumer A. And we will be adding consumer B. After this we will import all these 3 things also. We will just add it here only. And now if we save our file and look at the output, then we will be seeing. So React context example, we are getting the output whatever expected. Let us just change this h6 to h3. So you can see that we are getting the statement about the non-context example and A and B. Now we will be seeing the console statements. So if I refresh again, then first we are seeing the non-context example is rendered, then child A and then child B, and later on the provider is rendered. Now if I press this button about A, then the value of A is incremented, but re-rendering of child A, child B and provider takes place. So the non-context is not being re-rendered, but the rest 3 are being re-rendered even if there is no increment in B. Similarly for B also, all these 3 are getting re-rendered. So the non-context one component will not be rendered. If I refresh, you can see it is being rendered only once. Again increment, then these 3 components are being re-rendered. So that was it about today's video, and do like our video, do subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next video.